Okay, welcome again to our Kabbalah session. We're going to continue talking a little bit about the Sefirot and what the Sefirot are about. And we saw, or we started to see, how the Sefirot really could become a very complex and powerful model to really understand the inner core of the person's spirit and maybe even understand the world. However, we must remember that the Sefirot are symbols, okay? And the Sefirot represent certain things, but they're not a physical thing. And in the Kabbalah, they are very powerful symbolism. Now, in contrast to other concepts or metaphors, the symbol is very rich and very flexible and can give you a very wide space to maneuver in terms of ideas and so on and so forth. So we know that, for example, the mind of the person is very powerful, and it can even cause certain process of healing in the person, whether it's meditation or hypnosis or anything like that. You could even enhance people past traumatic experience or even certain illnesses. Now, the thought and the imagination are really the true gate and the real gate to the upper worlds. The Kabbalah teaches us that yes, there is a spiritual reality in an objective matter, and the gates to this reality are basically the imagination and the thought, the machshava. The 10 Sefirot in their essence are in a way, our source in Kabbalah, the root is in Kabbalah, are basically 10 spiritual vessels that, using them, heaven and earth was created. Those 10 different powers, as we spoke about it yesterday, of the 10 Sefirot are in a way, look at this, almost like 10 different channels of energy that through them, through the capacity of those vessels, each one, as we spoke yesterday, based on the thickness or refinements of the vessel itself, were able to create basically everything in this world, whether they're physical or they're spiritual. And since the soul of the person, the spiritual entity of the person, is a reflection of the person itself, a human himself, is a reflection for all the worlds. So because the 10 Sefirot reflect into her, but also understanding that through those 10 Sefirot, the Sefirot that we have, also different channels and gates in which we could connect to the upper world also are present. Those 10 Sefirot are the channels in which we could also connect and understand other people as well. So after we spoke about somewhat, just like on the tip of the fork over there, we talked about the Sefirot themselves. Let's look a little deeper now. The Kabbalah teaches us that in the spiritual world, everything is in unison. Okay, everything is one. It's not fragmented. What are we talking about? So let's give you a little bit of an analogy here. So compare it to water in the ocean, whether it's the Pacific or the Atlantic, doesn't make a difference. Compare the water of the ocean to, let's say, take all the bottles of water in the world, right? Now, there's a lot of water in the world in bottles. However, the water in the ocean are in one complete unison, in one body. And the water in the bottles, even though it's the same water, let's say it comes from the same spring and so on and so forth, however, since they are in that bottle, in a different vessel, they are separated. The water is the same water, H2O. But because they are in a vessel, you could able to notice that they are separated. They are not united. They're the same H2O. It could come from the same source, from the same spring, but each one is in a different bottle by itself. Now, even if in some of the bottles we're going to add, let's say, for example, we're going to add some kind of concentrate or flavors or colors and so on and so forth, even more so, there's going to be a reality that every bottle, there is completely different water. For example, if you're going to put flavoring of orange juice and so the flavors are going to be different. I can add colors to it, and altogether I have a totally different entity. However, if I'm going to take all this water, after I mix the water in the bottles, after I mix them with all kind of other chemicals, and we pour them back into the, going to be so weakened, so the difference between them is going to be so the difference is going to be so dismissible that by putting it together, that even if they were all different colors, different flavors, by the fact that I'm putting back into this big source, is going to be in a new form, is going to be one again into the ocean. So maybe like this, we can understand the concept of spiritual unity in the upper world, in comparison to the separate in this world that we're at. In the upper world, in the spiritual world, all the differences become into one. And the higher you go, whether you're talking about Olam HaAtzilut, the unity is complete. In our case, in the example that we use, you could talk, let's say, for example, a big container of water. So in the upper part of the water is going to, of the container, the water is going to be very, very clear. And that's going to be the purest water when there's no other foreign substance have any influence on them. However, the further the lower you go, the further down you go, you already start to see different colors and different flavors until you go, and all the, all the stuff that is on the bottom stays there. So it will be like if, for example, you mix, let's say, sugar water into, it's going to be a part of the water, but slowly it's going to fall down. And on the top of it, you're not going to be able to tell that there's something mixed because it's going to be clear. The water is still clear, but the further down you're going to go, you're going to see the murkiness, the unclarity that it is that is there. So the further down you go, the more of the difference you'll be able to see. So if you would like to use this analogy in regard to the Sefirot, so therefore you could say to the quote unquote the divine water that was created, Amayim Asher Me'ala Shamayim, there were 10 different types of flavorful concentrate that were mixed in, that are not only different or noticeable in the color and in the taste, but let's say even in the temperature of those concentrate that you put in, and many, many more different parameters that are all mixed inside. So therefore, we have a situation that the water are going to be colored in many colors. So if going back to our container, so the top one, we're going to see, as we're going down, we're going to see different colors, different qualities, and the further down we'll go, the colors are going to be more mixed in within this, and the attributes are going to be mixed together. And at the bottom is going to be very, very difficult to be able to identify one from the other. It all becomes mud. Everything is mixed together. Everything is very complex, very mixed, so much that every phenomenon in the world is basically a result of that concentrate, that it's mixed in with great pressure and get a great mixture of all the other elements mixed together. So in a way, we could say, for example, that in this big container of the upper worlds, there are let's say jet streams of water into our world, and those jets pour to this world. That some of them become hardened. They create certain vessels, and some of them stay in this liquid form and mix into the kilim, into the form that in the vessels that will form in this world. Another important point is really has to do with the source of that jet stream that causes the materialistic phenomena in our world. Now, as the more or the higher the source of this jet stream of water that comes down, the higher it is, so is that phenomenon in our world is going to be more secretive, more complex, and more, how should I say it, esoteric. And because it's so pure, it's going to be very, very, almost unnoticeable in our world, because it's clear. There's no substance to it. Now, we could really hint from that the source of every neshama, right, comes from a different part, in this container, that what we call the spiritual world, based on the specific point in which this neshama really came from. This is going to be the qualities of the person in the world here now. So based on the actions of the person, you could really see, or you could able to identify if he comes from a high place or a low place. And in today's reality, it really plays a big role in terms of the differences that we have. In one hand, there are people who are seeking spirituality with all their might. And the other hand, there are people who are looking for extreme physical experiences with all their might. And in the middle anymore. So it's either up or down. And you see, sometimes you do find people that come from the middle, but it's very easy to get used to it. But examining and actually seeing the extremes, then you realize that there is such things. Now, when the Mekubalim inwards to themselves, like for example, the same thing as we should be doing now. I do believe that the whole situation that we had, whatever came about from this coronavirus, is not necessarily because people spoke in shul or people, I think it's something personal to all of us, because the end result of everything was that we were alone. So therefore, the avodah has to be pnimit. We have to examine ourselves internally. So the Mekubalim do this all the time. The Mekubalim always examine things internally. So the further they go deeper into themselves, the further they go into the deep of the neshama, into the souls, they found many different gates in their soul, and they're able to go further deeper to the most purest realms of their spiritual reality. And it's a tremendous work and a tremendous labor to do so. And the Mekubalim put a lot of effort themselves to really pure themselves and purify their the whole existence, whether it's physical or spiritual. And the reason they do so, in order to be able to really refine that mixture inside of them, that it is a mixture of a blend of all elements from all Sefirot mixed together. It's almost like trying to do reverse engineering or some kind of like osmosis or something like this to, let's say, smoothie. You put in a smoothie or in like a milkshake, a whole bunch of different things, and you're trying to refine it to the point that you're going to get all the fruit in one side and the milk in one side and the ice in the other side. So they do so in order to do the beirur internally inside of them, in order to reach the purest state of shefa that comes. The labor in which the Mekubal assigns to himself is not, again, and we need to understand, it's not by dismissing this element or the other element, by dismissing this attribute or the other, or by making one higher over the other. The real avodah of the Mekubal is, first of all, to create an internal balance between all these elements in order to create an optimal flow, the best possible flow between all those elements. So there won't be a blockage. So everything will be harmonized and it will flow okay. Now, as soon as the Mekubal really refines himself, all those elements, and he purifies them, now he can go upstream. Now he could really go against nature, against the it's like a salmon that goes upwards into the source of his neshama. And the salmon, I think, is a great idea, because the salmon goes into the rivers, to the place in which they were hatched from the eggs, to the source. Now, if you put a dam, you can reach the source, and therefore, guess what happens? There's no salmon. So, I mean, now they finally came to the conclusion to maybe remove some of this dam, so the salmon can go really up. So is the Mekubal. The journey that he does is to the purest elements in his neshama, to the source of his neshama. And when he's going to reach over there, he could really into this container or whatever, he could really dive into the swirls and elevate himself higher and higher to reach higher and more pure spiritual realms, areas, to the best of his ability. From such a high point of view, a Mekubal could really watch everything, how they descend down, how everything goes down, and to really see how things progress and develop, and how it comes down to play a role in our time. And therefore, they create all the elements in the world. They're not going, a Mekubal is not going to go and by this understanding manipulate and change things. The Mekubal will be able to see things, he understands things, but he would not interrupt with that. Even though he could affect the flow, but the flow will only be in a good way. For example, they will pray, they will daven, just like as the Gemara says. But they would try to prevent doing any kind of manipulation, like, for example, certain things HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not allow us to do. Like, for example, to haste the end or to do certain things against, we have to accept that this is from Hashem. But maybe he could pray for people to become, to be chozer b'tshuva and so on. And that's basically what he does, understanding how things work. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach us at rabbigaon@gmail.com. We were going to continue, hopefully, talking about these things for a while. So if you have questions, you can reach us in this email. Check us on Instagram and Facebook, and in our Yeshiva at yeshiva.etzion.com. And I would like to dedicate this Torah, the Shiur, to the Hatzlacha and well-being of removing of all obstacles, of Fegel, Sarah, Batruv, and Lev, of Chaya, Chana Chaya, Bat Sarah, and to all our supporters and Talmidim. Amen. Kini Yiratzon. Have a great day.